A world-neutral approach. This is fundamental to how we go about investing at Beta Frontier. Now, I usually tell people, I already know what's in your portfolio, even though you haven't told me anything about it. Let's try this in real time. Take out your portfolio. My guess is you have 80 to 85% of your assets in US stocks and bonds. The 15 to 20% of your assets that's not US, it's in international, I would argue that's 100% international stocks. You likely have 0 international bonds, 0 real estate, and 0 commodities. How did I do? I likely did pretty good because the cookie cutter portfolios that I see Wall Street selling are the same for everybody. And that's a US home biased portfolio where 80% of your money is in US stocks and bonds. Now, home biased portfolios are actually global in nature. By that I mean if we travel to Japan, the average investor in Japan has 80% of his assets in Japanese stocks and bonds. But it gets even crazier than that. If we go to a smaller country like Greece, and we all know the headlines that Greece has suffered through over the last 5 or 6 years. The average people in Greece have 80% of their money in Greek stocks and bonds. How about Russia? Think about what happened to the home-biased investor in Russia last year. The Russian stock market down 50%. The value of the ruble down 50%. Russian home-biased investors got devastated last year. What would have saved them? A world-neutral approach. Let's think about what was going on in Japan in the late 1980s. Japan's GDP was growing a remarkable 5 or 6% per year. Their stock market up 20-25% per year. It seemed like they were taking over the world. Mitsubishi bought Rockefeller Center. Who could have blamed a Japanese investor for putting the bulk of his or her assets in Japanese stocks and bonds? But what happened next? Their government took on excessive debt. They went into a 30-year deflation. Their stock market went down 13 out of 17 years, down 70% over that time period. Japanese home-biased investors got devastated. What would have saved them? A world-neutral approach. Now, people often tell me, Randy, the US is the best. We're the best country, the biggest country, the most diverse country, and I agree with all that. But let's think about the return sequence that we've seen over the last 35 years. If we travel back to 1980, what were mortgage rates in 1980? Often 12-14% seems unbelievable. Today they're at 3 or 4%. So in 1980 we had very high interest rates. Today, very low interest rates. In the early 80s we had very high inflation. Today we have very low inflation. In fact, we're fighting deflation. In the early 80s, government debt was very low. Today it's very high. The valuation of the US stock market in the early 1980s was very low, and today it's very high. I see very few macroeconomic similarities between now and then. Thus, I think the return sequence we've seen in US stocks and bonds over the last 35 years is very unlikely to repeat itself going forward. In fact, I think it could be the exact opposite. Now, that doesn't mean I want to avoid US stocks and bonds. We are the biggest country. But what I don't want to do is place all my eggs in one basket merely because I live in that country. History has treated home-biased investors very cruelly over time. Thus, we take a world-neutral approach. We believe in maximizing our diversity, and that is fundamental to what we do at Beta Frontier.